So I'm going to start with the question: what is mental health, or what is mental illness? What is even our mental health? And then what is mental health illness? And any one of you can start for us.
Yeah. Sorry. So I don't mind kicking off with mental health. I think mental health is something that it's to do with how the stability of the mind and how you're able to deal with everyday life and everyday issues. I think mental health is similar to any form of health. So physical health. Once you've got physical health, there's a spectrum. At what point do we say someone is not healthy? There are different grades of health, different levels of health. So someone might be more healthy than another. I think in past people have often seen either you're mentally well or you're mentally unwell. But there's a grade, there's a spectrum of health. And I think everybody fits in one part of the spectrum when it comes to mental health. So, and that depends on how well you're able to how well you're able to deal with the demands that life brings. So life obviously brings so many different things, and how well you deal with kind of the ups and downs of life is kind of a sign or show of your mental health or your mental well-being. And so all of us fit on that spectrum. Obviously, there are people who will consider mentally ill on the other end of the spectrum, who may have to either be in certain care homes or stuff like that, who are chronically unwell, and they would be on one side of things. And then there are people who are doing very, very well mentally and are dealing with like the challenges very, very well and able to rise above challenges. And so those are mentally healthy. But there is a spectrum, and I think also you don't fit on one spectrum throughout your whole life. We do fluctuate. So there are times where you may find yourself a lot more stressed, and when you find that you're less healthy at that point, we then need to react positively to be able to put yourself back into the healthy spectrum. And there are times in your life where you're feeling really good, you're feeling positive, you're feeling confident, and you're able to go through life very well. At that point, we'll say that you're more healthy. So there's a spectrum, and it's always very fluid. There's always movement on the spectrum of mental health. So yeah, that's kind of my take on mental health.
Yeah, I think my brother has really spoken well. Like he said, mental health is any form of unwellness of the mind. To make it simple, when I say the mind, I mean the brain. I found one definition quite useful, and I'm going to quickly read it out to us. He says mental health is an illness of the brain that causes disturbance in thinking, behavior, energy, or emotion that make it difficult to cope with ordinary demands of life. So mental health, for example, it's like a wound. It's like comparing it to physical health. So it doesn't start in a day. It's accumulative in most cases. 90% of the cases is something that has, occur maybe in we might start with something as little as stress. And if you are not careful, if you are not aware, being conversant of this and take note of, the impact of daily stress on people's life, especially when we are talking about youth, then it's the accumulative stress that is untreated, unmanaged. Then it's just like, let me just quickly share this example of having a little cut. So like physical, if you have a little cut now, but because it's physical, you can see it. If you leave it untreated, it could be infected. So it's very similar to our mental health. Although we don't see it. That's why a lot of people don't take conversant of their mental health, because it's something that is hidden away. But the whole body is, we have about three things that makes up the whole body. We have the body, we have the soul, and we have, our mind. And we take more care of our body. What about the mind? And to be, if you agree with me, the mind controls other part of our body. If your mind is not okay, you won't be able to look after your physical health. So in the actual fact, the one we look after the least is the most important. And when we're talking about the mind, I know we'll get there later. It's how you feed your mind as well. Like it was mentioned by Mrs. Akubi Ade earlier, your spirituality. We feed it into our mind, and this is what makes up our, the composition of our brain as well. So the mind, when we're talking about the mind, is, interchangeably used as the brain as well. So a lot of people don't look after their brains, which is the mind. We feed more. We have time to have a wash in the morning. When we shower, we use lovely lotion on our body, on our physical. We take multivitamins. We do exercises. We do that. We take more care of our body, but the mind is mostly lacking because it's majorly unseen. So when we are talking about youth these days, a lot of things are impacting on their mental health, and because the parents are mostly busy in this part of the world, they don't, because they don't have the time to see the changes in the behavior of their young one. Maybe the parent is on night shift and day shift and all that. They can't see that some of his behavior or our behavior is changed. So these are little things that could change in people's state of mind or state of their mental health. But to cut the long story short, mental health is just mental health illness is any form of unwareness of the mind.
My sister and Brother Joel has actually dealt with that issue. So I would be repeating what they have said if I should say anything, if I should add anything onto it. So mental health is a state of the mind, but when it now becomes affected, I think that's when it becomes an illness. So everybody have a state of mind, a state of how they think, how they reason, how they cope with situations and things like that. So we talk about everybody having a mental health. But when it now deteriorates or it goes, in another shape or form, then it becomes an illness. And then when it becomes an illness, that's where the issue begins. And I think it becomes an illness when, students or when youth can't cope with stress or when they're anxious. We discussed something in this area a few months ago about the fact that, with the issue of COVID and everything that is going on around the world now, it has, having lockdown, people losing their jobs, people not knowing what is going to happen tomorrow and things like that. They have, it's either they have that state of anxiety where they feel, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, and they're anxious about what is going to happen tomorrow or what is going to happen in the future, or they have a state of depression where they feel as if they can't catch up and they feel depressed as if, I've not been able to do all the things that I want to do. I need to do this, I need to do that, and so because I've not been able to do it, and they feel useless to themselves, and so therefore they feel depressed. So it can be a state of depression or a state of anxiety where they're anxious about what's going to happen next or what's going to happen in the future.
So how do we know? How do we begin to suspect, or how do we begin to establish that something is going wrong with the mind? How does it manifest? What are some of the symptoms that we should look at for, or that we can see in others and start to begin to be concerned?
On that, I think from experience, because people are different, so we tend to, that's why it's very important, because we are talking about youth today, it's very important for parents to know what their children are like on a normal day, because that is when you could tell easily how things have changed for the person. So, because what is normal for some people might not be normal for example, some children like to have their own company. They like to spend more time on their own, maybe in their bedroom. If you know that is usual for your child, then when they are on their own, you might not be too concerned. But for somebody that you know that when they get home, they like to interact with everybody, they like to be around others at home in the living room, and then you start seeing them isolating themselves. So those are one of the signs that you could tell that someone is changed, changing character. Really, that's one of the early warning signs to pick up. Some might be loss of appetite. It could be physical signs of anxiety. You can tell. And some of these children, because they have been bullied outside, you know, they come home depressed. But how do you know that someone is depressed? It's difficult at the early stages. So that is why we are employing parents today to know, you know, what is norm for their children, especially when they are at the teenage stage of their lives. So some of them will hide it because they don't want mom and dad to get worried. Actually, they're facing a lot from outside. And that is why suicide rates among youth is really, you know, increasing. In fact, the way it's increasing is in exponential rates. So parents really need to be conversant, because at this stage, children are trying to discover themselves. They're trying to defend themselves. They're trying to find, you know, who they are, and their ego. They're trying to build their ego as well. So they're coming home, you know, already stressed from outside, maybe because, you know, we are all aware of some of these Black Lives Matter. Our children, they are really facing through a lot of things daily, on a daily basis, from their colleges, secondary schools and stuff. So they come in and they are really fighting all this type of sort of depression from them, the way they've been treated. So when they come into the house, we should be able to tell. Some of them might be struggling to tell us that something is wrong with them. You can tell by people's facial appearance as your family. So, but if they come in and then we bring in a lot of other complaints at them, they won't be able to open up to us. So it's always good to know the individual. That is the best way to recognize the early signs. Some of them will not eat at normal times, and that's how it starts. Some of them will lock themselves up. Some of them will stay up late in the night. Some of them will give excuses to attend lectures or their school. They might say, oh, this and that, just because they are trying to shy away from that trouble, from the stress they are going through. So there are so many different ways that people can show early signs of mental health illnesses.
Yeah, I just want to co-sign what my sister said. I think it's very important to realize that it shows very differently. I think it can be dangerous trying to say, you know, one thing or two things are signs, because oftentimes what we'll have said is that if someone will always isolates themselves, they're suffering from one form of mental issue or another. But we found that there are many people who have suffered mental issues, who have been very jovial, who have many friends and have many people around them. And those are the people who usually get overlooked when it comes to dealing with things such as depression, such as anxiety, such as bipolar, and so on. And stress, especially because these people sometimes can be very good at communicating with their friends about things. They could be very good at going out and stuff like that. And we don't know and that they're dealing with these issues. So it's very important to be able to study behavioral patterns. I have a few things that I up here that are signs. I guess these signs are maybe better for the person who might be going through it themselves. So I was looking at some of the signs of depression, and some of them is maybe feeling tired, being exhausted. And this exhaustion is not just to do with physically exhausted. This is mental exhaustion, where if you always feel like, I don't know if when you had a very, very long day, you feel mentally exhausted, consistently having that kind of feeling of exhaustion all the time, or experiencing what we call brain fog. Brain fog is when you don't have the ability to kind of think clearly or think straight. When you have a decision to make, and all of a sudden you can't really align your thoughts. When we're making decisions, generally what we do is that we say, okay, what are the pros, what are the cons? If I were to go down this way, these are the things that might happen. If I go down this way, these are the things that might happen. But if you're experiencing brain fog, it means that you can't even kind of bring out any clear thoughts or get clear decisions about how to go about a situation. Oftentimes, that person might be going through either depression or anxiety, because it's as if they worry so much and they almost like get into this like paralyzed state inability to kind of move forward or backwards. Finding it extremely hard to concentrate. So you're not able to kind of focus your mind, feeling agitated. Some people, they find that they're always tearful, and you should ask them, why are you upset? Why are you crying? They can't really give you an answer. You know, those kind of people going through certain things. So obviously substance abuse is an easy way to know. If someone is obviously if always taking some form of drugs or whatever, overdosing on domestic drugs or taking illegal drugs, illicit drugs, those people often have some form of issue. And expressing this thing called burnout. I think sometimes in the Christian community, we use burnout as just a thing of, well, I've just preached a message, now I feel burnout. But burnout actually is not something that God has promised to us. It's not a thing of, burnout is not something that, I've preached or I've done something, I've ministered, and I'm experiencing this spiritual burnout. Actually, it can be spiritual, but it can also be a physical thing. If you're going out and you're preaching a ministry to people, Jesus Christ didn't experience burnout. Jesus Christ went all day, he'll go out, he'll pray for people, he'll heal people, and he'll get physically tired. The Bible says that, after he preached, after he spent a long day with the woman at the well, the Bible says that he was tired and he found a place to rest. He was physically tired, but even then, he was able to minister to her, even from that point. He wasn't mentally burnt out. So if you find something, even as a preacher or you find yourself as in any situation, even a Christian, just say, "Oh, I'm feeling burnout," is because there is a need for mental rest and for you to go back and work on your mind. So those are some of depression. I'll go through some anxiety stuff and then I'll round up there. Because anxiety and depression are really some of the big ones. So excessive worrying. I know a lot of people know, and I'm sure we all know someone who's always worried. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if, everything doesn't work out, everything just goes completely, and they're just always in a state of worrying and panic. That's signs of anxiety. People who are suffering from insomnia, not unable to sleep. And when it's time to sleep, they're often thinking, what happens? What about tomorrow? Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if this is going to happen to me. So people, they have like thoughts of what if you're driving, you have this, what if like someone crashes into me? What if this happens? And just those consistent, unhealthy thinking patterns and thoughts that, they cause restlessness, they cause fatigue, you're unable to concentrate. There's consistent irritability and tension. Some of the physical things that someone might experience is increased heart rate and palpitations. Your heart is always beating fast. You're always sweating and having hot flushes and shaking and chest pains, shortness of breath. These are signs, if this is always occurring. These are signs. Obviously, if someone might be having hot flashes and sweating, and it could be something completely different. So I'm not saying this is only for that, but if this is one of the things, these are some of the signs that may occur. They may not occur, but they may occur. People who are going through anxiety, and also just feelings of terror, feelings of being like just consistent fear, consistent worry. So yeah, these are kind of things that one will look out for. It's very difficult outside to see in somebody these things, but if somebody themselves are going through it, they may notice, yeah, actually, I identify with maybe 3 or 4 of those things. Maybe I need to just take care of my mental well-being. And maybe as they do that, they might find that these things start to kind of cut out of their lives. But yeah, these are kind of signs and things to see if people are going through some of these things.
I'd just like to say that, there are some other things, just like what Mr. Fadujitimi said, my brother said, about the fact that some people are lively and you wouldn't know that they have, that, they are mentally ill, or they suffer from depression, or they suffer from anxiety, because they are still very, bubbly, and it's very easy for them to slip off your hands. So one of the things that one needs to be very aware of, or the other things, is self-harming, because some of them actually harm themselves based on the fact that they feel unworthy, so they feel like the way to punish themselves, is to self-harm, or that they've done something wrong, they are not good enough, and things like that, and then they start harming themselves. So that's another sign, that's a huge sign to watch out for, because I will give an example of one of the students that I used to teach as well. You wouldn't know. It's not it's not written all over her face that she's a kind of a happy person. She talks a lot. In fact, she's very disruptive in class. And you wouldn't know that she's actually going through that until you get a report telling you to watch out for this person because she's self-harming and she feels that she's not good enough, or she feels as if all our other friends are better off than she is, or some of them because of their body image, just like what my sister said. There are so many other things out there that the social media have painted for this youth to feel as if, okay, this is how you should be. If you're not like this, then you are not good enough. Or the fact that, so there are so many other factors that can affect this mental state or the state of mind or mental illness. So social media can be part of it as well. They look at their social media network, they see that, they feel as if, they haven't got so many likes, or somebody is bullying them and things like that on social media. And parents need to be aware of this, and they need to be into their children's lives and be not be in control, but be part of it. Get them to talk to them, get the students or get their children to speak to them, because some children who are very lively, who can talk, who are quite talkative, they may not say that aspect of their life unless you get close to them. And as African parents from an African background, growing up in an African community, we as parents, we want to treat our children the way we were being brought up. And things have changed. So it's very important for us as parents to actually calm down and try and listen to them and see from their own perspective. Because we feel, I didn't experience that when I was growing up. What's wrong with you? Why are you experiencing this? So in our community, it's very, very important for us, because now it's so, I'm sure my sister will testify to this because she's been in it for quite a number of time, because people from our community is becoming a common thing within our community, because we as parents, we don't listen as such. We feel we can bring our children up the way we've been brought up. But times have changed, and it's very important for us to be part of our children's lives, and listen to them. So not listening to them and feeling as if they are not worthy, they're not good enough, can create anxiety or create depression for these youths or for these teenagers.
A certain background. So who can be affected?
It can affect anyone. Nobody is immune to mental illness. Like maybe from our background, it's like is it like a taboo, something that is not supposed to be spoken about, or there's still this very thick stigma around it. But in actual fact, there's no 100%, and it's just the way we are able to manage our, like my sister and brother has said, different level of stress, and the way you can manage it and undo it. Well, because we can manage things differently, and apart from external factors, some of us are predisposed to having mental illness anyway. So that is there, but you can then lead a healthy life, healthy mental life. If you are watching, you might not know you are predisposed, but if any little thing then come and trigger to it, then it can spring up. Because sometimes when people become psychotic or delusional or whatever in any age, it could be because their dopamine level or serotonin level is affected. And some people cannot, help it, because genetically, it's been found that people that have maybe in the history, great grandfather or relatives, distant relatives that have suffered with mental illness in the past, or like maybe it could be Alzheimer's disease, it could be all sort of unrecognized or undiagnosed anxiety or depression. So sometimes some people are already predisposed, So now, going through any sort of external stress or anything can then bring it up. So that makes, it just shows that anybody could, even unknowingly, could slip into having some sort of mental challenges. However, even without being genetically predisposed before, stress, daily stress, some people loss of job, bereavement, bullying, like it's been mentioned. So any other things that are happening around us can impact on our mental wellness. So that just shows that any form of trauma can lead to mental challenges in people. So anybody can be affected at any point in time.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think I was spot on. I think there's not, just to add to that is, everybody has a threshold, and I think your threshold is dependent on many factors. If you're brought up in a stable home, when I say stable home, a home where you have there's enough income coming in, and both parents are around, and there's a level of in that home, you find that there's a stability in the home within mother and father. A child growing up in that home is shown, studies have shown that a child growing up in that home is more likely to grow up to be a respectable part of society. And apart from that, they also are likely to be more stable in the mind as well. But people who are brought up in homes or families where maybe single parent households, or households where there's a lot of trauma going on, or a lot of experiences that were too much for the child to bear, those things can then become, like the word our sister uses, triggers. Those things can then become triggers in the future. And a lot of people do not realize they have triggers until those things occur and they realize that they've acted in a strange manner. And so when she's talking about being predisposed, you can be predisposed genetically, but you can also be predisposed by the kind of experiences you've had in your life. And I think the threshold you have is dependent on kind of like your upbringing and your experiences. So if you've had a very stable, life, maybe you've stayed in the same. Also, moving around a lot. When children move house from house, they don't get a chance to just be stable in one place. And change, when there's so much change, that often can create an instability for young people. When they then grow up into their teenagers, they realize that these things have an effect. They all kind of add up. So I think, those are kind of things. But any stress that comes in can affect anybody. So as soon as something happens that is different to the norm, that can trigger something that causes you to go down the line of mental illness, or go down the line of being unhealthy mentally. But that's kind of my addition to that.
Can it be managed? Can it be cured even? Or can it even be prevented?
I think yes. Most of it is, you mentioned that most of them are possible. In terms of preventing it, it is important that people are aware of what mental health is and what mental illness is. So when we are aware, it helps us to be able to be mindful of it, because what I found is a lot of people are not mindful of that aspect of their life. So awareness is very important. And then another thing that I found useful to help people is about talking. That is what we call talking therapy. So it's good to, when you feel stressed, it's always good to talk about it. Don't leave it till when it's accumulated, or don't bottle things up. And that still boils down to where we started from, about parents being able to. It's very, very helpful if we can make our children our best friend. When we say best friend, we are not talking about coming down to their level and sort of not being able to correct them. That's not what we are saying. But finding a friend in them, trying to let them trust us, to be able to talk with us, so that when they go out there, when they are stressed, or when they are confused, because they will find confusing information out there that will bother, and they have a very, they are very inquisitive. They want to find out, and it's bothering them. But coming home, we need to make our home warm enough for them to be able to discuss with us. And then, because we are Christians, we can always find answers for them in the Bible. But if we don't give them that opportunity, that rapport that they need to be able to trust us enough and ask these questions so that we can deliberate and find answers together in the Word of God, then they will definitely look for answers elsewhere. And it's like a vacuum. They will want to fill it. So, and it's very, very likely that they will find the wrong answers. And that is where the problem will start. So it starts from being stressed or being inquisitive and then finding the right answers and what kind of answers or support they receive. So when they go out there and they are not able to talk to their loved one or family or mom or parent out at home, and they go out there, they mingle with wrong groups, and unfortunately, they get wrong answers. They get to try things that will affect their mental health the more, because at that stage they might be looking for how do I look good, or or even exploring their sexuality. Is it, and they go out there, they get the answers that are not, godly, or that will even affect them from outside. Even if you look at gun crime, knife crime that is happening among our youth these days, I still know, for me, in my opinion, I know they are not in their best right state of mind when you see our children, and it's endemic within the BME, among the BME society. They carry knives. Why are they carrying knives? It's because they are insecure, and insecurity is part of mental health. When you start to feel insecure, paranoid, it's a form of mental health. Fine, it's not yet. I think what most people think mental health is when people are psychotic. When they become do things that are weird. But that is just one part of mental illness. There are other little ones that we just overlook, and they can compound to become even full-blown psychosis. So, but when you see children, they come home, parents don't know they have knives under their socks or on their bed hole or wherever. Why are they carrying knives? They feel that's the way they can protect themselves, or maybe it's been introduced to them by their friends, because it's children of Christian children are among those people that are carrying knives, and it's because they have been bullied from outside. Their mental health is unstable. Maybe they've been called one name or the other, and they're thinking, okay, that's the best way. If they fight me, I need to fight back. So a lot of things are, this topic is a very important one, and it's a very large and complex one. But it's important that we make it, as clear as possible to say it's not something that has to be, big. Explain in a big form, or it can't be me. Because some people believe that, mental health, no, it can't be my family, and their children are sleeping away, so it could be anybody, and it could be as little as we have mentioned. It could be anything at all, Some people are, been informed that they don't look good, they look like a man when they are ladies, and they are struggling with this. So, and that starts to impact on their mental health. So, and I believe it could be like the question. Don't let me, wander too much away from the question. That can it be prevented? Yes, it can be prevented. And one of the ways is not bottling things up. When something bothers you as a teenager, please speak out. Get help. There is help out there. There is an organization that is called Time to Talk. I will give the contact later if you want me to. Yeah, it's free, and you can self-refer yourself. Please talk to your parents, talk to somebody that you trust, talk to somebody at church. Be very mindful of who you talk to as well, because you might get the wrong answer that can complicate the issue. Don't go into drugs, because some people will tell you that drugs will help you to manage it. No, it will worsen the situation. So please don't go and start using drugs. Don't go and start asking people that will make it worse for you.
I just wanted to, there was a lot of things I said there. Also, if I forget, Samaritans is another good one as well, people to go to. Samaritans, they deal with depression and anxiety and stuff. So if that's another way you can go, if you type it in Google, and go into their website, as you can write a letter, you can email, you can call. But I think one of the mistakes that we made within the body is that at times we separated some of the issues such as mental health from Christianity, and we said, well, as a Christian, we don't go through such things. That's a worldly thing. Now, if I'm a young Christian man and I'm going through issues with body dysmorphia, I feel like the way I look is not good enough, or I have issues with my self-esteem, and I'm a Christian and I'm truly serving God. How do I feel going to church knowing that the pastor in there said, no, we don't go through those things. That's as a result of the sin of the world that they go through it. I feel left out. I feel like I've been told that I have to kind of live in denial to what the problems I'm going through. And I think some of the issues, within the body of Christ, we need to, like we're doing now, talk about these things. That young Christian people are also going through these things, and it's very real. Don't tell a young Christian boy that he's not going through self-esteem issues because he's made in the image of Christ. Yes, that's beautiful. We are made in the image of Christ, and that's something that he needs to believe. But at that moment, the reality is that he doesn't believe that. Don't say when your daughter says, "Oh no, I don't like this. I look like this." Then don't just say, "Yes, say this," but don't just say that you're wonderfully and fearfully made. Yes, they are, but that doesn't mean anything to them at that moment. It's a lot more deeper issue that we need to delve into, and I think we need to, as Christians, stop brushing these things under the carpet, because our children, our Christians, are going out into the world and they are trying to find confidence, and they're not finding it at home with their parents, because the parents are brushing under all the things that they're bringing to their parents. They're not being dealt with properly. And we need to deal with these things properly. What is the root cause of these issues? And that's the way to prevent anxiety. These issues were in the Bible. Just because we fail to see it in the Bible doesn't mean it didn't exist. Look at Moses. What happened with Moses? Moses was inside Egypt. He did something wrong. He ran for his life. Do you think Moses definitely had issues in his mind? Moses ran away, and then when God calls him to go back to Egypt, what does he say? I'm not good enough. That's going through mental issues, mental health issues. And God had to talk him and says, well, who made man's mouth? God had to talk him through the going back. And the very thing he ran away from, God asked him to go back and face it. And not just that, the things that we run away from and the things that maybe they taunt you are the things that we need to go back and fight. These are the stories that we need to tell our children, so let them know that, yes, in the Bible, people did struggle. Look at Peter. Everyone came to come and take Jesus Christ away from the Garden of Gethsemane. And what did Peter do? He pulled out his knife and cut the man's ear off. What was going on there? Probably anxiety. Probably he's worried. He acted irrationally. That wasn't the right thing to do. But Jesus Christ, he sees mental, said this is not the way you should do it. This is the reason why you shouldn't go about this way. Because if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. So we do not do that. We do not cut. And then Jesus Christ healed his ear and said, do you understand? So we have to talk about these things as part of our Bible. It's good to talk about David and Goliath and tell them, yeah, good, be brave. But let's talk to them about mental issues from young. That yes, there'll be times you will not feel great, you will not feel good. But these are the ways to overcome it. How do I overcome when my friends say that you need to look like this, you need to have this kind of, your body needs to look like this? How do I deal with that? We don't teach our children how to do it. And so when they go through the situations, they look to the internet for help, and the internet just tells them more that you're not good enough. And so we need to have these conversations. Don't shy away from having these conversations, including conversations about sex, about the way your body looks, about the way young black girls are not happy with the way their hair is. They don't like the fact that their hair has tight curls. I want my hair to be straight, like so and so. Why? Because if you look on TV, all the people in the adverts have straight hair. All the people in the adverts have this. So when they see that I don't like my hair, they're very afraid of it. Or a lot of them are going into bleaching. Why? Because it's either you're white or you are mixed race or you are light skinned. So the darker girls they're feeling left out. Girls who are too tall are feeling like I can't be married because you can only because TV says if you're a short woman, you get married to a tall man. If you're a tall woman, there's no one there for you. So we need to. These issues are things that you as soon as you see, you need to start to cut them out. If not, they build, and when they build, by the time you want to try and cure it, it cannot know that it will be too late, because we believe that God, there's something that God cannot do. But you're then trying to cut down a tree that is fully grown. and then it becomes harder to deal with those things. So it's about nipping them in the bud as they come. Nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud. As this arises, tell them about. Talk through it. It might, they might say, oh, my mom's going to, or my dad is going to make it a very big issue. But it's good because they know that you care. They know that there's, and finally, I think one thing that's very important is love. An atmosphere of love really helps you to overcome these issues. When you know that, these guys, because girls from very early on, they think they really want the affection from people around them. They feel like, oh, this boy doesn't love me, but at least my dad loves me. Or a man might, a boy going out there thinking, oh, these girls, I'm trying to get their attention, but at least I have the attention of my mom. So I don't need so when there's an atmosphere of love, it helps to prevent these things. And that's where Christianity comes in. That's where we have the advantage, because we have access to true love, true agape love that is unconditional, love that means that I can do anything for you. And that kind of love is very protective. It really helps to protect young people from anything. And that love is not just saying I love you, but it's about the way we behave, the way we act, and the things that we do, and the conversations that we have. And I believe that it's something that has to be done prayerfully. But Lord, help me to love my children, help me to love people around me the way you love. And I think as we do that, we can actually help to protect our young people from going through those issues.